Hashem's Vasai Tiftach Upiagi Talasacha. We're now in the second Perek of Shoftim, and here we have a very important concept. We have an important concept of how do we truly connect to Hashem? Do we connect in our minds? Do we connect in our hearts? Is there really a difference? Who cares if I don't feel it, if I'm doing it anyway? Can I live the life of a Jew and follow all the mitzvos, but at the end of the day, I don't feel the geschmack? Is that a dangerous proposition? And the answer is that it is. And we learn that very much from Sefer Shoftim. Sefer Shoftim has the Galgal Shoftim. It has this way of history repeating itself in a cycle. And we learn about the cycle at the end of the Perek. We learn that the Bnei Israel, as much as that they are given so many things and they should show appreciation to Hashem and they should really put Hashem first, they end up being influenced by all other influences. The shiny penny approach, the thing that really screams at them, pick me, gold, silver, Avodah Zarah. The Avodah Zarah of their time was actually idols, but we can't understand that because remember, Avodah Zarah, the desire for Avodah Zarah was taken away. It used to be that people literally would worship a tree or worship the ground or worship a rock. And it wasn't just worshiping people, celebrities, or money, or all the shiny pennies of today. But instead, it was much more basic. They didn't even have to go up all the way on the totem pole of technology, society, kavod. They literally had desire to worship in all different forms, and that was taken away. So we'll never fully understand that. But we do understand that there is a cycle, and the cycle goes, you don't put Hashem first. Hashem gets upset. He said, but you promised. We're married. You promised you were going to be faithful, and you weren't faithful. And in the Shoftim time, what they did was they didn't just leave Hashem, during the time later on, during the time of the kings. And this is a very important point. This is why Shoftim is Shoftim and Malachim is Malachim. They're separate books. They're separate Sefarim because it was a different level of saying goodbye to Hashem. In this case, they were saying, I do love you. I love you a lot. But you know what? Can I also love somebody else too? Right? I don't abandon you. I respect you. I think you're amazing. But you know what? I have these other needs that I'd like to explore, and you are just not doing it for me right now. And so Hashem says, wait a second, we took a vow. You can't have a marriage that way. And so Hashem punishes them. And the punishment is because Hashem says, I love you. I don't want to get rid of you. But in fact, we can't go on this way. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cleanse you. I'm going to give you real Yisurim. I'm going to give you difficult times. And those difficult times are going to cleanse you so that you then have an opportunity to come back to me. And that's exactly what people did. Hashem put in the path different, and this is what Hashem does. He puts nisyonos. He puts challenges. And the word nisayon, a challenge, comes from the word nes. It has a derivative, a nes. Wow, it's a miracle that he's doing that, but also a nes, which is a flag. I want to see who you really are. There's only one way that I can see who you really are after you've messed up. And that is what you do with your mess up. Can you come back to me? And when you are able to come back to me, then I feel like, okay, we are in this together. And then I stop the Yisurim and I send way that now we can live in symbiotic relationship and everything is good until, unfortunately, we do that cycle all over again. And that is exactly what the end of the Perek discusses. Now, the beginning of the Perek takes us to a place called Bochim. And who is it? Vaya'al Malach Hashem. There is a Malach of Hashem who goes to Bochim and tells the people, okay, listen, you agreed to make a promise with the Bnei Israel, with Hashem. And that promise you have not kept. I don't understand. Why did you do that? And the people during that time, that timing, they were able to hear those words, and that's why it's called bochim. They were crying. They were immediately contrite, and they immediately said, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, bad idea. And Hashem, through what this Malach of Hashem says, warns them and says, you can't get too close to the Avodah Zarah, because you're ultimately going to do Avodah Zarah. You have to tear down all of their altars, but you didn't do that, and look what you did. You were supposed to help drive them out, and now I'm not going to help you, because this is bad what is done. And the people are crying, and they're giving korbanos to Hashem. That is the old school, right? That is like, okay, here's a prime example of the people being immediately contrite. But over time, that cycle becomes more stretched out and way worse. And that is what the whole Sefer Shoftim is going to be about. This cycle of you left Hashem. What are you doing? Hashem has to punish, and then they do tshuva. On some level, they realize, wait a second, why is it that all these good things that were happening to me are not in my life right now? Why is it that I can't conquer the land? Why is it that bad things are happening? We know during the time of Rus, right? Sefer, the Megillas Rus, Vayhi b'mei hashoftim, that was during the time of the shoftim, and Hashem sends a famine. Why does Hashem send a famine? He sends a famine to wake them up. Hello, do you not see? I'm the one that provides you with rain. You are straying too far away from me. I am a jealous God, we've mentioned. I elkel kana. I do not share my wife with anyone. And so there was a hunger and a famine in the land. Was it just happenstance that there was a hunger and famine in the land? No, it was because the people had left Hashem and offered sacrifices to other gods. So here, now, who is it? Who is this Malach Hashem? So it is none other than Pinchas. Now, why would Pinchas be the perfect person to be able to do this? Because Pinchas was a zealot. He was all about keeping to the bris of Hashem. He really, remember, he killed Zimri and Cosbi. He was the guy. He's the guy who says, no, you have to keep the bris shalom. You must. And he loves Hashem, and he's zealous for Hashem, and he gets, as a result, he gets kahuna in his family. He gets the Kohen position, because he really worked hard on creating a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so he's the one who tells them. Now, we have an understanding that as long as Yehoshua was around, and as long as the Zikanim were around, right? Vayavdu ha'ames Hashem, as long as we made Yehoshua and the Zikanim, and so as long as that was happening, they were good. They did not stray. They had seen miracles. They experienced miracles. They felt the kedusha of Hashem. But you know what they didn't do? After Yehoshua dies, we already see that their hearts are not in the right place. Remember, that's what we started this Perek with. Can you just walk the walk and talk the talk without feeling anything? Now, when they buried him, right, they didn't do the best job. Remember, we said mitzafon lahargash, right? Hargash, what it mean? They hergish. They didn't have the right feeling. Those feelings, if you don't have the right feeling, if you don't have a feeling of Hashem, that's a real problem. Because what happens? What's immediately the next pasuk? The gam kol hador hahu nefsu al vosab. All that generation who had the right feeling, they died out. Vayakam dor acher, and a new generations come. Asher lo yadu es Hashem. You know what happens if your feelings aren't 100%? Then what happens is the knowledge of Hashem doesn't permeate into your soul. And so what ultimately happens is v'lo yadu es Hashem, next generation they don't feel it, they don't know it. We're going worse and worse. And that is what starts off the cycle of Vayasu b'nei Yisrael tzara b'nei Hashem. What? They didn't do good things. V'yavdu es Baalim. That's it. They worship the Baal. Now, how could it be? Vayakam dor acher, the next generation, asher lo yadu es Hashem, that doesn't know Hashem? What does this remind us of? Let's go back in history to the time of the Mitzrim, right? Vayakam melech chadash, a new king was going to come. Asher lo yadas Yosef, that didn't know Yosef. What do you mean? Yosef, he definitely made it into the celebridom. He definitely was a famous guy. There is no way that a new king didn't know, but he didn't feel the same feeling of Yosef. He didn't believe in that which Yosef, the ideology and the understanding and the philosophies of Yosef, he put it all lo yada. He's not accepting it. He's not accepting it in his head, and certainly, therefore, he's not accepting it in his heart. And that's why he deviates completely from, and we recognize that's why, the whole idea of slavery happened, because they had completely dismissed what was in their hearts and what was in their minds. And so what we see here is that it's one might say, oh, it's okay, Kavanah is not that important. I don't have to really love or feel the love. I could just, go through the motions. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be in, because very, very easily, if we don't have the right feel for Hashem, for mitzvos, for living a life of Torah, for being that Jew, or in any relationship that we have, if you don't have the feeling, then the knowledge is not going to help you enough. Yes, knowledge is important and feeling, and they are two separate things. But what we see from shoftim, what we're going to see is that just knowing that Hashem does things for the Bnei Israel, just knowing that we made this covenant, that's not the same. You need to feel it. And that feeling is what seems to pull them in multiple directions, because they then feel for the ball. They feel for everything. And so it really is a very hard balance that we see that the Bnei Israel go through. But this galgal, this is what's going to happen. And why? Why does Hashem continuously do all these things and put us in difficult positions? Why do we have very difficult times in our life? Lama'an nasos bam es Yisrael, to test us, to make us stronger, to develop who we are in faithful ways to Hashem, to understand that Hashem, He doesn't know what else to do, kivyachol, because we need cleansing. And the moments of real difficulty are moments where we go down to go up, to find our flag, to find that internal message, to find the feeling, to work on the feeling, and to be on the level where we saw the Bnei Israel they are told that they did something wrong. It's brought to their attention and they cry. They go back to their feelings. It's not just what Hashem does in their knowledge base, but they make sure that they have that feeling, that geschmack, that feeling for being a Jew and living the life that's close to Hashem. And that is the only way that we can put a stop to the galgal of the shoftim, to the cycle that we will now go through again and again and again throughout the Sefer.